y'all, this is Theresa.
And Mark.
And we're your hosts for
Tell Me That Story.
where we tell y'all true stories of real life happenings.
So stick around. You never know what you might hear.
How you doing today, Mark?
I am good. I'm enjoying my days off from work. I wish it was a little cooler. It's hot in East Tennessee.
It is hot.
But
It's still not as hot as
no, it's nothing compared to what I'm used to in Mississippi.
South Mississippi.
Yeah, we're from South Mississippi. If you've never been there in the summertime, you just have no idea. It's like Africa hot.
Absolutely.
The humidity is unbelievable. And, it's hot here, but it's not as humid.
Right. It's
It's
better.
that, quote, dry heat. I mean, it's not dry heat. I don't care. Heat is heat. Dry or wet, it's still hot. But when you figure in 80% humidity,
Yeah.
it's miserable.
And then what else? You got the beautiful views, so hey.
Oh, yeah, it makes it all worth it.
That's right.
And thank the Lord, we both have inside jobs now. There were years that I didn't. I worked out in this heat, and I do not miss that.
I do not either, and I worked outside last summer, and so right now, every time I go out, I'm like, oh, I'm just so thankful that I don't have to do that now.
There are several things. We don't have in Mississippi. Every year we have what is known as love bugs. I don't know what the real name of them, but we call them love bugs.
That's right.
And they come in, and they're everywhere. Millions and millions of them.
Yeah, I hope they don't come here.
Well, they don't have them here.
I hope they don't come here.
They don't come here. Horseflies. I've not seen a horsefly here yet. I don't know if they don't have them here. Mosquitoes. I've seen
A few.
I've seen a few. I was talking to a lady one day, and we moved. We lived in South Louisiana for 2 years before we moved here, and the mosquitoes were unbelievably awful there.
They were giant.
Yeah, and where we were at, we were less than a mile from Mississippi River, and pretty much surrounded by swampland. And the mosquitoes were terrible. You couldn't sit on your porch in the morning or the evening. They would literally carry you away. But I was talking to a lady up here, and she said, what do you like best about being up here? I said, because I like the fact that there's no mosquitoes here. She said, oh, we have mosquitoes. I saw one yesterday.
One.
One? Really?
Oh, yeah. You have no idea.
You just don't know. I tell you how bad they are there. We would go down to the river and fish at night, and we would wear long pants, blue jeans, and we would sit in those canvas camping chairs, and they would bite through the canvas and through your blue jeans.
I know. You talking about tough.
Yeah, those mosquitoes down there don't play around. These mosquitoes up here are babies compared to those.
Of course, we're not here today to talk about mosquitoes or the heat, but
but you look at. There's no love bugs, there's no horseflies, there's very few mosquitoes, and there's no cottonmouths. I mean, what else could you ask for?
God's country, honey.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about.
And everywhere you look, there's something beautiful to look at. So, the weather, it averages 5 to 7 degrees hotter. 5 to 7 degrees colder in the winter, and 5 to 7 degrees cooler in the summer. I messed that all up, didn't I? So it's a little cooler here in the winter than it is at home, and it's a little hotter at home than it is here.
Yeah.
But here we get the ice and the snow. At home, back in Mississippi, you hardly ever got that. If you did, it was just slush, and then after a day or so, it was gone.
Well, it's like, you really actually truly have 4 seasons here.
Yeah.
So more, better seasons, and you actually can wear the winter clothes and the summer clothes, and even have some of the spring and fall.
Yeah, back in December, we got almost 10 inches of snow at our house.
I know.
I've never seen that before.
It was beautiful. I did get tired of it before it got.
Oh, I was sick of it.
Before it left.
Yeah, because it stayed for like 2 weeks before it finally rained and warmed up enough to melt it.
Yeah.
But in Mississippi, if you got snow, it was slush. It was nasty. It was a mess. But here, the snow is like. It's like powder.
I know. It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. But anyway, we didn't come on here today to talk about the weather and all that. But I want to tell something a little strange today.
Okay.
I said on the first podcast, you may hear some strange stuff. And I want to tell a story today of something that happened to me.
Well, and I think I know the story that you're going to tell. And before you even start to tell it, I have noticed throughout my life and talking to Christians and just hearing some of the things, and they talk to us, and we've said this before, that people say y'all have some of the most amazing stories. Well, when you follow Christ, I mean, when you truly live your life for Him and follow after Him, then amazing things will start happening. You'll start having some experiences. But what I've noticed is a lot of people that consider themselves Christians don't actually want to talk about the supernatural part, the supernatural.
Right.
And they automatically throw in that if you say supernatural, I think their mind automatically goes to dark stuff.
Yeah, demonic.
Yeah, but I mean, Christ Jesus, I mean, the Lord, I mean, He is. We should be seeing the supernatural, hearing the supernatural, experiencing the supernatural. I mean, I love watch that show that Sid Roth has. I mean, the supernatural things of God, and I love to talk about it.
I think a lot of people experience things that they can't explain, but they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I think it scares them. And when we really need to be, actually, when you look in the Bible and the things that was happening, it was supernatural things that happened.
Absolutely.
And so what makes us think that supernatural doesn't happen today, and it doesn't have to be, of course, there's light and dark and everything. So,
yeah, and even I didn't want to talk about this for a long time, except, just to people I was close to.
And then you actually been a little bit nervous about talking about it on the podcast.
Well, I've kind of gotten at age now. If you don't believe me, I don't really care. I don't care. It's an absolute 100% true story. I've like I said, I only told it to my family and people I was close to for years. But this happened. I don't remember the year. We were still living at my dad.
Yeah, I'm going to say it was
property.
Probably about 1991, 92, maybe.
Yeah. I'm thinking it was early in our marriage. We'd been married, 2 or 3 years maybe. I grew up, like I said, in Southwest Mississippi, and my favorite thing to do was hunt Indian artifacts, arrowheads, and back in that time,
and fish,
of course. Back then, there wasn't many people doing that. There weren't many people hunting arrowheads and relics and stuff, and there was a lot of farming around us. And in the spring, when the farmers would go out and plow their fields, we had it was unlimited places we could go and pick up arrowheads. I found as many as 75, 80 in a day.
Yeah, I remember that. You
it
would
was
come
crazy.
home and you would just have pockets full.
Just pockets full.
Yeah.
So there was this field that I had been eyeballing on my way to work. I kept seeing this field, and the field was situated on the same river as another place that I found a lot of arrowheads on, and I thought, man, this field looks good. I want to find out who owns it. Well, come to find out, the guy that owned it was like my second or third cousin. And I went and talked to him. He said, yeah. He said, I don't care. He said, now the best way to get in there is park at that old church and step across the fence, because if you don't, you'll have to drive around to the back of the property and park, and then you'll have to walk about a half a mile to get in there. So I said, I'll just park at that old church. There was an old abandoned church that sat off of the road. It said, I don't know, a couple hundred yards off the road.
I mean, really old, really
old.
Really old.
Yeah.
And
hasn't been used in years.
I just want to stress that.
Yeah. Doors and windows boarded up, no power coming to it. This place was old. It had been abandoned for years. I actually think now somebody has gone in and remodeled it and started it back up, but at that time it had been sitting there vacant for years. So I drive in there, I park my truck, and it's late in the evening. I only have about an hour till dark. So I park my truck, jump the fence, go out there, look for arrowheads, and it starts getting late. And I thought, I need to go. By the time I get back to my truck, it's going to be dark. So I come back, I walk a pretty good ways across this field to get back to the fence. I jump across the fence, and before I get in my truck, this sounds terrible to say this, I need to relieve myself before I get in the truck. I got about a 15-minute drive home, so
you just couldn't wait, could you?
No, there's nobody around. I'm a country boy.
Country boy, let's just say country boy.
It's country, Of course, there's no porta potties or anything around, so
No.
I find a big pine tree.
No gas station. You're out in the middle of nowhere.
There's nowhere. So I get behind a big pine tree and do my business. While I'm doing that,
That's what just blows my mind.
this is where it gets weird.
Are y'all ready? Y'all just hang on to your chair if you're sitting down. And if you're standing up, you might want to sit down.
I hope we don't lose people over this. But this is where it gets weird. While I was doing that, I started hearing singing, like angels singing, like a bunch of angels singing. I'm not talking about, and when I say singing, I don't mean like they were singing words and lyrics. It was like oohs and ahs. You know, I can compare it to like monks in a monastery, how they just, they do that.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
That again? What was that?
Nah, that was enough. You got the point. And it sounded like a lot of them. And I thought, my first thing, you automatically try to rationalize things. My first thought was, they've got a security system set up in this church, and they've got a camera, and they've got it connected to this sound system to try to scare people off. But then I realized there's no power to this building.
Yeah, you really got to thinking about that again. No power. It's boarded up. It's old. It's just
and the utility pole where the power came in, the line had been cut and rolled up in a roll and hung on the top of the pole by the transformer. There was no power to this building at all.
Didn't you tell me that you went over there and, I mean, like, you started really, because it overwhelmed you so much that you went over there and started really looking.
Yeah,
and
I
that's
was
when
looking.
You noticed the pole and everything.
And then I realized the sound was not coming from one direction. It was everywhere.
How long did that sound last?
It was still going on when I jumped in my truck.
Okay.
Yeah. It
I don't think I've ever asked you that question.
It wasn't like a quick 2 or 3 second thing. It was still, it freaked me out. It scared me.
Oh, I know.
But it sounded like it was coming from everywhere. The sky, it just, it's hard to describe what I heard, but I went on YouTube and I found a clip that is very, very similar to what I heard. So y'all take a listen to this and see what you think. So that's very similar to what I heard. And even when I found this clip, when I listened to it the first time, it gave me chills because it took me back to that moment. And, after 30-something years, I still have not fully figured this out.
When you came home that day, I was already there. I was at home, and you walked in the door, and I just remember that you were white as a sheet.
I was scared to death.
All the color had drained from your face, and I knew immediately that something was going on, and I'm like, what happened? What's wrong with you? And that's when you started telling me.
Well, I thought I had desecrated holy ground. You know what I was doing when the singing started.
I know.
And this is a churchyard, and I
Absolutely.
thought, I don't think that's what it was.
I don't either.
Let me tell you something really strange. I was on Facebook the other night, and somebody had posted a reel on there, and it was these guys, and I'm not saying this was true. This may have been made up, but it was these guys in a boat out in the middle of a swamp late at night, and they heard church bells. So they got their phone out, and they started videoing, and you could hear the church bells plainly, and they sound like they were coming from everywhere, just like the singing.
So they were out in the middle of nowhere too.
In the middle of nowhere. They said they were miles from the nearest church.
Okay.
So I commented, and I said I had a similar experience, but I heard angelic singing.
Yeah.
And I left it at that. Well, this guy replied to my comment, and this is what he wrote. He said, there are many heavily possessed places, and demons can physically eliminate a person under mortal sins, meaning they have access to you. What happened to you is that God didn't permit you to die on that day and forbid them from touching you. Jesus ordered angels to protect you that day, and that's why you heard them. And I thought, that makes a little sense.
I don't know. I don't. I don't really know. I mean, it does make you wonder. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I mean, I have heard, and I remember you talked to the pastor's wife about that when it happened at that time.
And she said, you have been allowed to hear the sounds of heaven.
Absolutely.
I said, why?
Yeah.
She said, that part I don't know.
And why then? And I have heard, I've heard of people being in church and they be singing or something, and then the singing would stop, but that heavenly choir would still continue to be singing, and you could hear it. And I've heard it on some videos too.
Oh, I have too.
So I'm glad that you were able to actually, I remember that after she told you that, the pastor's wife, that's when you started looking up sounds of heaven.
Yeah.
And what other people had heard, and that's when you came across that clip.
I wish it had not scared me so bad. I wish I would have stayed longer and listened. But then again, I think, if I'd have stayed longer,
what would have happened?
What would have happened?
Have you heard anything like that since then?
No.
So
I've
is
never
that the
heard
only
anything.
time in your life that you've heard anything like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still can't explain it. It was really, really strange. If any of y'all, we have a link on our podcast player. If you've heard anything like this or anything like this ever happened to you, send us a message and let us know about it.
Yeah, we'd really like to know. I'd like to know if anybody else has had an experience like that.
I think people have strange experiences, but they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to be ridiculed. They don't want to be called crazy. While we're talking about this, I'm going to tell you another little story about something that happened to me one time. This happened when I was about 15 years old, and I'll make this quick. Me and my parents were in the car going to town, and we were on a section of the interstate. There was, on the right side of the interstate, there was a huge field, and it's planted in pine trees now, but it used to be a huge hay field. When I say huge, I mean it was probably like half a mile to the back of this field, to the tree line. Directly across the interstate is a school. So we're driving down the highway, and I notice something out of the corner of my eye, and I look out across this field, and there's this light. That's the only way I know to describe it. It was like a ball of light, but it was moving so fast it was leaving like a trail behind it. It came across this field, came right in front of our car, and was going directly toward the front door of that school. And just before it hit the school, it made a 90-degree turn and went straight up and out of sight, and it was gone.
Yeah.
And this whole episode lasted, from the time I saw it come out of the wood line to the time it was gone, was maybe 3-4 seconds.
Yeah.
That's how fast it was moving. It was unbelievable. And my mom said, well, that's fireworks. I said, Mom, fireworks don't dodge buildings.
Yeah. They don't make a 90-degree angle like that. And
well, yeah, and a couple of days later, there was an article in the newspaper that some people in the town next to this had seen this light moving real fast.
Yeah.
Nobody ever figured out what it was.
It's just strange.
I've never had anybody tell me, oh, that was this or that was that. I've had people say, well, it was ball lightning. No, ball lightning don't move like that. Ball lightning is a real thing, but it moves very slowly. It does not. This looked like something that was controlled.
Yeah.
Ball lightning moves randomly. It bumps into stuff, and usually when it bumps into something, it goes away.
Yeah.
This made a 90-degree turn. Nothing natural can make a 90-degree turn at that speed. It's not possible. And then it went straight up and out of sight and was gone.
Yeah.
And
very unusual.
very weird.
Yeah.
And it was so close in front of our car that my dad hit his brakes.
Yeah. I remember you telling me about it.
It was like 3 feet above the ground, and I would say probably the size of a basketball to maybe a beach ball.
I didn't realize it was that big.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it was bright white.
I don't know why. I was just automatically thinking it was smaller, so I'm glad
you know how a meteorite leaves the trail behind it?
Yeah.
It was moving that fast, and it was so bright. It looked like a ball of fire.
Okay.
But it was white, like plasma, and it left this trail behind it. I don't know. I don't know what it was. I'm not going to even speculate on what it was because I have no idea.
No idea.
But that's another one of those weird things that makes you go,
Yeah. And we got some more things that we can talk about that makes you do that too. I mean, we'll get into some more of that a little bit later, but this is just kind of a little start for the first time for you to hear some stuff like that from us. So
and you know, when you start talking to people about things like this, a lot of times they'll open up and say, well, let me tell you what I saw one time.
Yeah.
Or let me tell you what happened to me. But they won't tell you until you bring it up.
Well, you know, remember, Mark, here we go. Here again, when we were out traveling singing a lot full time, you know, we wouldn't even say anything on the platform, but how many times would somebody come to me after the service and they end up having something to say to me one-on-one or us one-on-one, and it would be kind of on that order.
Yeah, something that there's no way they could have known.
And they wasn't comfortable, you know, they wasn't comfortable. Stuff was going on, things was going on, but they didn't want to talk to just the normal person, but they felt comfortable to come to us, and we would pray with them.
Yeah.
You know, so.
I thought you were talking about we'll get into that other thing later.
Yeah, we'll get into more stuff, but yeah, people have things that's going on. They just don't always want to, you know, talk about it first. They don't always want to admit it. They don't understand what's going on.
Well, I think it's natural to question, did that really happen?
Absolutely.
Because I've even questioned over the years, did I really hear that, or was that my imagination? I heard it. It was a physical sound. This was not in my head. You could hear it echoing through the woods. This was not something that was in my mind. This was an actual audible sound. And the light crossing the road, me and my parents, we all saw it. This is not something I imagined or dreamed. But anyway, if you have anything that's happened like that, let us know about it. We'd love to hear it. And I hope, you know, people don't think we're crazy.
Well, it's okay, you know, and you may lose some listeners, you may gain some listeners, and it is what it is. We're who we are, and we're telling you exactly what we say in the intro. We're telling you, you know, true stories of real life happenings. And so that's what we wanted to talk about today. So we hope you've enjoyed something that we've had to say, and this truly happened.
I can't explain the things that we've talked about today, but I can say this. All we know about this world is what we've been taught.
Yeah.
And most of our textbooks were written by atheist scientists.
Yeah.
We don't know everything about this world. The Bible talks about some things, and we'll get into that more later, too. I've been looking into the Book of Enoch, the historical books, the, quote, lost books. The Book of Enoch was not part of the canon scripture, but it's a book of history, and it goes into great detail about some things that the Bible don't talk about.
Yeah, so I can't wait for those days that we can dive into some of that kind of stuff. But it was great to be able to share this with y'all today. I hope that y'all have enjoyed something that we had to say. And anything else, Mark?
I think that's about all for today.
All right, well, y'all stay tuned for next time. Thank you for joining us. We hope that you enjoy Tell Me That Story.
Y'all rate the show. Subscribe, follow, whatever your podcast player allows.
Send us a comment. Let us know, have you heard something?
Let us know what you think. God bless y'all. Y'all have a great week, and we will see y'all next time.
Blessings to you.